get a pretty large bang associated with the caution and warning now. Okay, as we have an apparent serious oxygen leak.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Houston, we've had a problem. He's in a roll and he can't stop it. Performing an evasive maneuver. Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here. I think we need to do a little more all-weather testing. Welcome to space.
Hello and welcome to Failure to Launch, the space history podcast where we take you through all the mistakes, failures, and explosions that made modern space exploration possible. We are your hosts, Quinn,
Chris.
A false Chris.
and today we're going to be talking about Operation Third Bridge, or how the Polish resistance stole an entire Nazi V2. And today we are also going to be joined by a special guest, Red Eye. He is a YouTuber that I am a big fan of who has done great reviews of all kinds of action flicks with a big focus on Steven Seagal and other 80s, 90s kind of action stars. Red Eye, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to do it. I'm not a closeted space nut. I don't really talk about it on the channel, but yeah, I'm a big space guy.
Awesome. I feel like a lot of people have a connection to space if they look in their family. You said you had one as well, right?
My grandpa, yeah, so he helped build the observatory in Colorado Springs. Yeah, Air Force grad, did a lot of stuff with NASA. We got a bunch of as a kid, whenever we did vacation, first of all, he packed vacations, like we had itineraries and stuff, right? Like down to the half hour where you could go. Typical military dude. And every single vacation would always be detours to space, like centers or, some sort of NASA, whatever. And every single one of them, he just kind of waves his super secret badge and you get to go back behind the scenes and see how whatever tests they're doing, or like the centrifuge, or one time we got to go to where they made I don't know what part of the rocket they were making, but it was like a big manufacturing area, and these warehouses are like stupidly massive, which is these massive pieces of curved metal everywhere. Like when you see it on a TV, you don't realize how big a freaking rocket ship is until you're in a space with one.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, and then my claim to fame, I have met Buzz Aldrin numerous times as a kid because he would go to Air Force football games with my grandpa.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
So I have a couple signed photos, and I met him when I wish I was a bit older so I could have appreciated, the interactions a bit more. I was probably like 7 or 8, but yeah, I met him a couple times as well. And I met the dude who was the first pilot of the world's smallest spaceship, which is that backpack exploration thing where it's just like a big backpack that allows you to go up, down, left, right, kind of in open space. Got to meet the first pilot of that thing. And yeah, it made me a bit of a space nut.
Oh, that is cool. So this story is going to be going back a little bit earlier than that. This is going to be one of our first talking about kind of World War II. So have any of you guys ever heard of Operation Third Bridge?
No.
Not before now, no.
That's actually probably fair, because this is a very unknown kind of thing. This is a story that I had barely heard about, and I really did not understand. This is such a cool story, and yet people know all about, whenever it comes to World War II spy stuff, they know about British commandos. They know about the Norwegian resistance blowing up that German ship full of heavy water.
We know about how Christopher Lee stabbed a man in the back.
Oh yeah, I would have loved to have seen George Lucas, or here's how you hold the lightsaber, and Christopher Lee just I've opened up men's necks like Pez dispensers. I know what I'm doing.
I forgot all about that little interview tidbit where he's like, no, he wouldn't be shouting because all the air would be escaping his lungs. I've done this before. Oh my god.
This is what a man sounds like when he dies, and you just get that glimpse into the dark right there.
Yeah, making sure that anytime Christopher Lee is in Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, that all of his props are like Nerf, so he doesn't accidentally just kill someone.
Just some of the Winter Soldier programming doesn't click on, and he just
Right.
opens someone like an Amazon package.
Oh,
Not to immediately get you off topic, but have you guys seen the movie Tropic Thunder?
Yeah.
Bits and pieces of it.
Okay, so first of all, a ridiculous movie, but the guy who pretends to be the veteran that they're telling his story about, the fraud guy, he's got a pistol. Like, I don't even know what type of gun it is, but he like pulls it out and they're like, "Is that a real gun?" He's like, "Yeah." Like, "What is it called?" "I don't know the name of it. I just know the sound it makes when it kills a man." It's like, Jesus. Oh, it's so good.
Beautiful.
and with this story, this also gets into something like two things that I'm very interested in, which is rockets and spies, because we talked about it a little bit in the intro, but this is how the Polish resistance in World War II stole an entire goddamn Nazi V2.
Yes, immaculate.
Yeah, and once you have that prompt, you can understand why I'm angry that this story isn't more known about. Like, there should be movies about this.
Hey, they did make a movie called Iron Sky, which is literally about Nazis on the moon. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
we've seen that. It's pretty historically accurate.
World
I'm
War II
sure.
covered.
I
Yeah,
mean,
there
the
you
modern
go.
day equivalent would be, I don't know, what? Just an American SEAL
Top
team
Gun.
rolling into Russia and just
The
ripping
most recent Top Gun. Plucky Americans destroy not Iran's super weapon project.
No,
Done.
no. We're doing some fucking gangster shit in this edition. We're
It-
rolling
okay.
up to we're rolling up
All
to a
right.
Sarmat silo and stealing an ICBM.
The equivalent, all right, Steven Seagal and a bunch of like washed out MMA guys.
Yeah. Stone Cold Steve Austin would be in it.
Yeah,
Joe Rogan.
Joe
yeah.
Rogan.
They have to blow up the evil American, or they have to steal some American weapon and get it back to Dagestan. I think that's
I
where
love
like kind of Chechnya area. He did a lot of stuff there. At any rate,
Somewhere in the caucus, he's doing something.
Something I do Aikido. Either way.
Seagal would be just the driver, though. He's not getting out of the vehicle because it's the only chair in the whole set.
Listen, he's just the cook.
Yeah, I'm just the lowly cook.
When I have a completely asinine ask,
okay.
we must dedicate this episode to Boss, our favorite Poland obsessionist.
And not the actual people we know from Poland.
We could dedicate it to Impact. Yeah, she'd
Okay,
appreciate it.
all right.
She'd appreciate it.
For context, we met on a D&D server, all of us.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of other people who have been very dedicated fans since we started.
Let me get this straight. You met on a D&D server, and then 3 of you were like, "We're really into role-playing as elves and Nazis stealing rockets." It's a very particular friend group that you
Exactly.
you guys have dwindled down into.
Aggregate 4.
Now, I'm hoping that all of our listeners on the show know what the V2 was, but for the sake of clarity, the V2, or Aggregate 4, was the world's first ballistic missile. So it was deployed starting in 1944. It could loft a metric ton of explosives, and it could send it out to a range of around 300 kilometers. And back then, this weapon was completely unstoppable. It traveled in a ballistic trajectory that took it just about to the edge of space, and it impacted at faster than the speed of sound. So people on the ground had no warning and no way to evade it. Between the first operational launch in 1944 and the end of the war in Europe, more than 3,000 V2s would be fired at Allied cities, killing upwards of 9,000 people. Of all those rockets, about 95% would be fired at Antwerp or London. On top of its other wonderful traits, the V2 was built with slave labor in the infamous Middlework underground factory, where another 20,000 people would die. So this is the initial not fun stuff.
Dang, wait, so they died in the by misfirings at the factory or something?
No, so what happened with the V2, and this is something we'll definitely cover in our much more grim series eventually, was the Middlework factory was right next door to a concentration camp called Middlework Dora. And the people who were sent there, Jews, POWs, any other kind of undesirable that the Nazis have,
Sure.
would be used as forced labor to make these rockets. And it had a incredibly high death rate working in this factory.
Wow.
And this plays into the whole role of like Werner von Braun, all of the other Operation Paperclip scientists that were recruited by like the US, the USSR, basically everybody after the war. and pretended to have just like, oh, I wasn't a Nazi, I was just following orders. They knew about this. Like they ran middle work.
Yeah, it turns out that rocket production involves a lot of unsavory chemicals, and not caring about thingies being lost leads to a lot of bad things.
We'll get to this, but surprisingly for the V2, it did not have the weird, fun, melt your test pilot kind of chemicals that other rockets of this period did. It did have something a little different, though. And I want to make this clear. As a military weapon, the V2 was like a complete hopeless failure. It could deliver half the payload of a single German bomber. It was incredibly expensive to build. It required large, specially trained crews, and it was famously unreliable, often exploding on the launch pad. And sometimes, if we were lucky, taking out those launch crews.
I was internalizing it, but I guess I'm externalizing it now. Trying not to go on a tirade about how stupid Wunderwaffe are, but it's like,
oh yeah,
being given the statistic of how many people were killed by it in its active deployment versus how many people were killed as a byproduct of its just production process. Just, I don't know, man. The cruelty of it is just so appalling. Like,
I've seen people make those kind of observations, and you have to understand that for the Germans, the 20,000 people that died making this rocket was not a downside, it was a positive, because they wanted these people dead. This weapon killed Allied civilians and German undesirables at the same time. The Germans kind of viewed it as like a two birds, one stone kind of deal.
Wow.
Yeah, not fun.
Just time to get angrier.
Yeah. So, but at the same time, yeah, like it was not a good rocket. And
it was a terror weapon at best, ineffective.
People very bravely sabotaged the fuck out of these rockets, which was a big reason of why they exploded constantly.
That's amazing, though.
Oh, yeah. And when people were caught, they were executed doing this, but it didn't stop them from, like, the amount of sabotage going on at Middlework was like systematic and ridiculous. And all of these problems were also when the launch crews weren't drunk. See, the V2 ran on an ethanol water mix, and there was a very major problem with German rocket crews drinking the fuel.
Beautiful.
And it does make sense because, like, when you look up the definition of vodka, it's ethanol mixed with water. So this rocket literally ran on vodka.
And it's German for sure. It's not Russian.
Yeah. Although, yeah, both the U.S. and the Russians did get a lot of them at the end of the war.
I was going to say ran on vodka is how like half that country kept going for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Just propelled forth by.
It's just fermented potato.
I was about to say, propelled by the potato liquid.
Oh, it's good stuff.
The rancid potatoes drive me forth.
The rocket flying overhead, everybody watching, and the fumes come down and give everybody just a little bit of a buzz.
A couple guys learned the hard way not to get too close to the back of the rocket. They're like, "Oh, I gotta mainline this stuff." That's how.
Some like the pressure pump, like fully sucking a dude in as he tries to drink out of the fire hose of vodka.
Fine pate. Just, okay, get out of the way, I'm ready.
And when it got off the ground, the V2's guidance system was so primitive that it could only be aimed at large targets like cities. But that was okay, because that's what the missile was intended for. See, the V2 was one of Hitler's vengeance weapons. So these were the V1 cruise missile, the V2 ballistic missile, and the V3 supergun. These are the famous German super weapons that like were these technological wonders that Hitler thought would scare the Allies into either surrendering to him as his armies are like being crushed, or
just bending the knee.
Yeah, or like at the very least make a truce, that the Allies would basically be like, the Germans could be like, look, we have a big gun, and everybody would just immediately surrender.
Brilliant.
That at least all of that was the plan, because as history actually played out, focusing so much of Germany's dwindling resources on pointless wonder weapons meant fewer tanks, aircraft, and guns being made. Things that actually could have helped the Nazis turn the tide. So,
are you saying a bottle rocket is ineffective for a war?
Yeah.
No.
That, as it turned out, these like dumb wonder weapons, for all the damage they did contribute to Germany losing faster than it did. Losing faster than it could have.
Couldn't have happened to shooting people.
Yeah, exactly. All of the worst project things happening to Nazis makes it good. Anyway, production and testing of the V2 got started at the Peenemünde Army Research Center in 1942. This was the hub of Nazi rocket science and the home to Werner von Braun and his team. If you look at a map, Peenemünde is sort of right up in the top right corner of Germany, right on the Baltic Sea, and about 20 miles from the Polish city of see, I practiced my pronunciation before, but now I've forgotten it.
Oh, it's so tough.
I'll get one of the Polish people dubbed in saying it properly. But Swinoujście. Crucially, the Germans also conscripted thousands of Polish laborers to build new launch sites and facilities and factories at Peenemünde. This is important because almost as soon as work started at Peenemünde, the Polish Home Army, their resistance movement, knew something was up, alerted the Allies, and flooded this facility with informants. A significant chunk of the people working at this rocket factory were Polish spies.
Honest to God, counterintelligence excellence. That is not even a joke.
You're just looking out at your rocket factory, and every third guy is wearing Groucho Marx glasses. And just a full-on trench coat.
How many of them have the massive, photo camera belt buckles?
So for the next year, Polish spies working at Peenemünde took notes, stole documents, and monitored the V2 launch tests before handing the info off to the Home Army, who passed it off to London. And while the V2 was unreliable, the Germans were making good progress, enough for the Allies to decide to stop them. And so, in August 1943, the Allies started Operation Hydra, which is a very cool name that roughly translates to bomb the living fuck out of Peenemünde with almost 600 bombers.
I like Operation Bomb the living fuck out of them way better than Operation Hydra.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's a shame we didn't have the current naming conventions. But then at the same time, you would have had Hitler would have put the name of a tank up to an internet poll.
Oh yeah.
No.
Yeah, that would be...
He'd be Instagram living him creating the bombs.
This is the worst reality here.
And the worst part of it is the fact that Instagram is just letting him do it, right?
Oh, of course.
Now, Operation Hydra, unfortunately, didn't succeed in doing all that much damage to the launch site. It actually wound up killing a lot of workers because they accidentally bombed the worker barracks. But it did show the Germans that Peenemünde was well known to the Allies and within reach of their bombers. So to try and hide the V2, they started setting up secret V2 launch sites all around Europe, often in occupied territory. So Poland, France, the Netherlands. When members of the Polish resistance discovered one such site near the town of Blinza, they set in motion a plan to steal Nazi Germany's greatest superweapon. This plan, codenamed Operation Third Bridge, remains, in my opinion, one of the most daring and least celebrated examples of espionage and civilian resistance in World War II.
Operation Third Bridge.
Just how unassuming the name is for the actual subject matter.
It was called that because there had been 2 missions before this. Third Bridge just refers to the plan to fly stuff out of Poland. I think the British called it Wildhorn 1, 2, and 3. So there had been Operation Bridge 1 and Bridge 2 before this, but those had just been getting an important guy out of Poland. This would be a major step up. The first step was setting up a network of watchers around the missile site. When they noticed a V2 lifting off, they would report the launch time and direction. Armed with that information and aided by sympathetic locals, resistance members would rush to the impact site of each rocket, hoping to recover some piece of valuable technology. I say hoping in this case because their efforts were mostly thwarted by heavily armed German recovery teams who would arrive first, retrieve the valuable electronics from the rocket, and just blow up the rest. It was several months of trying and failing before the resistance members managed to get their first win. On May 20th, 1944, a test V2 slammed down in the River Bug, near a village called Sarnaki, and lodged upright in the soft mud. To give you an idea, this thing literally slams into a riverbank and is nose down, tail up, just sticking out of the river.
Just comically sitting there.
Yeah, literally within 100 meters, a couple hundred feet of this village.
Wow. With the coyote strapped to the back of it, hunting his roadrunner.
When the resistance fighters found it, with minutes to spare, they quickly hauled the rocket onto its side and rolled it deeper into the river. Finally, for good measure, a local farmer herded his cattle into the river, muddying the waters and blocking any view of the test rocket.
Oh.
Yeah, when the Germans arrived, they couldn't find the V2 and left after a few minutes, allowing the partisans to come back with a team of engineers who, stripped this V2 down to the bolts. And anything they couldn't steal, they made detailed like engineering drawings of. So they hide this thing by just surrounding it with cows. The Germans give up immediately. All right, maybe I should. This isn't quite the action movie part. This is more of just like the cartoon logic part.
God, it's great though. My low IQ, when you said covers it in cows, I was like, oh, did they act like a buffer in case were they concerned it was going to blow up and they needed like cows in between the people in the rocket? I had a whole different reason.
Some cow-based ablative shielding.
Steak shrapnel.
It would instantly cook it. I assume it'd be hot enough you could just eat whatever fell out of the sky.
And like nice and soaked with vodka.
Hey, that's an expensive marinade.
Hey, question as old as mankind. How hard do I have to hit this thing to make it cooked?
I mean, you could... I watched some video where these guys cooking
a chicken breast by slapping it.
No, what was it? They cooked something by shooting it. They launched it out of something through fire, and the fire was so hot that like while it was in the air, it cooked all the way to like an edible temperature within
that's cool.
Like 2 seconds or something.
Walking into a restaurant, there's the cashier. And then there's just like a huge wall of flame. And every now and then just some food goes flying out towards somebody.
Yeah, and then land on your plate.
The tangents are a part of it. But no, there is actually a YouTube video of some dude cooking, it was either chicken breast or steak, with a machine doing nothing but slapping it repeatedly.
Just friction cooking it.
Yeah. Just transferring energy by slap into the meat.
I'm weird. I might pay a little bit too much money to eat it. I just want to see what that would actually taste like.
Just sitting off to the side, hour or two, waiting for it to get up to temperature, pack of cigarettes, you just, yes.
I could easily see that being like the punishment at the restaurant, though. I'm just like, if you fuck up, you're just sent to the corner to just like, yeah, you see that, like, so you just go to the meat room, there's just like a cow dangling from a hook, and you're just like, all right, cook it. Go.
Do you think, better question, do you think Rocky Balboa in the Rocky movies partially cooked those rack of cows that he was punching over and over?
That is a very good point. That should have been like represented in the movie. That could have been monetized.
Yeah.
On an extremely technical level, he absolutely raised the temperature of them.
Yeah, I mean, you can eat cow at a pretty low temp, but he could have brought it into a relatively safe zone.
Give a parasite a concussion.
So yeah, at this point, the Polish resistance has a V2, and whenever they reported this to the Allies, the British intelligence initially didn't believe them, and it took a lot of convincing and a lot of evidence. Like, no, we actually stole a V2. We have it right here with us. Again,
Instagram would have made that way quicker. Just a selfie.
At the same time, though, like if Instagram was around back then, the images would wind up the same. It would just be like black and white filters on everything.
Of course.
I do not need the rocket bell of a V2 with the dog the dog ears and nose filter on it.
If you want an actual image of a bit of what this looked like, slide 17, you can see they've just got a canoe and what is the rocket nozzle of a V2.
Wow.
They're just hauling it out.
That's something straight out of a Fast and Furious movie right there.
Yeah.
That canoe would 0 to 60 pretty quick, I would assume.
0 to shrapnel in 2 seconds.
0 to shrapnel.
Yes.
So yeah, like the Brits don't believe them. They finally managed to convince them by sending along some of the evidence. And together they cooked up a plan to smuggle as many parts as possible out of Poland and to England. So this is Operation Third Bridge, because it is the third mission of getting stuff out of Poland. And like we said, compared to Operation Third Bridge 1, Operation First Bridge and Second Bridge, this one is going to be like a lot more complicated and a lot more difficult because they have almost a ton of V2 to get out.
Yes, a literal ICBM to transport over.
Yes. To be fair, to get it out of the river, they have had to like break it down into small enough parts that like some dudes smuggle it out like in their pockets.
Wow.
And back in the closest city, they just have a warehouse where they're just laying out this huge pile of rocket.
I want to know how much of the actual explosive was taken, and if so, just someone walking around with, I don't know, a pocket of explosive Play-Doh.
Oh my god.
I'm pretty sure this was a test V2, so it just would have had like a big concrete block about the same weight as the payload.
Do you think that the concrete block was important to salvage?
Yeah.
Like, the British being just like, no, that's a highly important concrete block. We need to study it. You need to get that concrete to us.
The Germans make their concrete differently than we do, and we need to learn how they make their concrete.
We need to know how to call their concrete ineffective and gaslight them.
That's honestly one of my favorite things with spying is where someone lies about the capability of their weapon or something, and then the other side believes it and fully like gaslights themselves.
This could be a totally different topic, but didn't they make inflatable Jeeps and inflatable tanks and stuff to make it seem like they had more like things than they did?
I think that was D-Day.
Oh, was that D-Day?
They pretended that D-Day was going to happen in a different area. So they set up an entire giant fake army there full of like, and they even moved the tanks around from like time to fool spy planes.
That's so cool though.
I could even be wrong about this, but if I'm not mistaken, they actually had Pat in there just, to name drop someone. So the Germans
It's just a cutout.
No, just so the Germans would just full on Papega eye stare at him and ignore
My God, I'd recognize
else.
that silver fox from above anywhere.
But no, they also did the inflatable vehicle thing in Africa too.
Man,
yeah.
that would be probably both fun and disappointing to be like, all right, I'm a tank driver. And then you get out there and your
inflatable
role
tank.
is to occasionally push the inflatable tank around.
Well, you have to make sure it moves naturally. You got to learn that stuff.
You gotta make sure it doesn't fly in a high
Why
wind.
am I just imagining Fury, except all of the tanks are inflatable and they shoot giant like push pins?
Oh,
A lot of fewer people, a lot less death in that movie would have happened if they were
Yeah.
inflatable.
No, I'm just imagining this nowadays. You're some, drone pilot. You fucking crash into this inflatable tank, and
Just
then
bounce
just
off.
wow.
It would have to do the cartoon balloon thing where it starts sputtering around the air.
Yes.
I just spent $25,000 to look like it showed in front of my friends. Well, let's get a mulligan on this one, guys.
Target destroyed. Success.
Painting that on the side of my tank like kills. It's just
Balloon.
like balloon.
They just tape a balloon to it.
Let's not forget that the prima donna of all aircrafts only kills or balloons. So, I mean, that's
Oh,
gotta
yeah,
count for something.
Yeah, gotta get that man an ace.
But I love the idea that you blow up the decoy and it's like, yes, target destroyed. And you look up in the corner, it's like 0 points.
And then you look down on the floor, the dude's got a bike pump out, he's reinflating it, trying to get it back
What
up.
is this? A spy in TF2 that's dead rigger
Yeah,
on?
not getting the Call of Duty hit marker sound when you shoot at it. Yeah, so where was I? So yeah, they've got this Operation Third Bridge, and their plan was to fly a DC-3 Dakota transport plane all the way from Italy to German-occupied Poland. Like just the way things worked out.
What?
Yeah, they flew from Italy straight north over Germany, over like all of these other occupied Nazi countries.
Wow.
No.
Wow.
Excuse me. That plane does not have the range.
They made it work.
Shenanigans. Shenanigans are involved. I love it, but shenanigans.
I don't have information on this because Operation Third Bridge is very much not written about. They very well could have made stopovers, but any of those stopovers would have had to be in like other Nazi occupied countries. So I'm not sure how, unless they had like secret bases or something.
No backup. They went the what's it called? I can't remember the name for it. They do it in civilian airlining. You just rip all the seats out, fill
And you
full
fill
of
them
fuel
with
tanks.
fuel. But then they also had to get home with 900. Well, we'll get to that.
Well, hey, they just asked the Polish, hey, can we get some fuel, buddy? And
that-
then
that
I
has
don't
to be
know
a-
if the Germans just gave it up because at this point they're just so thoroughly cooked from the inside.
Yeah. So, and if that sounds kind of like slapdash to you, this plan where they would fly from Italy to Poland and then back with all these rocket parts, they had an even like both better and dumber idea. So to sneak the plane in, because Poland like at this time is very much occupied by the Nazis and is right next to Germany, which is where like most of this activity,
Oh,
like,
Christ.
yeah, there'd be a lot of people watching, a lot of aircraft in the air to like intercept it. To sneak the plane in, they plan to use the confusion caused by the nearby Soviet advance and hand off parts in an area where the German army was in full retreat. So they like thought, where will the Germans not be looking? About a mile away from the Red Army.
Wow.
where they are actively running through. Well, actually, no, that's a stroke of brilliance. Actually,
It is.
hold up.
I mean, if it hadn't worked, we'd be saying it was stupid. That's how a lot of cool ideas happen.
That's right.
If the Germans had spoken a lick at them, they would have been found out. But hey, they're trying to get a rocket out of there, buddy.
Yeah, I'd also be worried about, like, I don't know, a Soviet artillery shell just like splattering the thing.
God, this gotta be so
Sometimes
confusing.
the risk needs to be made.
I just
It was probably worth it, considering that like anywhere else they would have gotten spotted and shot down. So they decided to use the largest invasion in human history as a cover for their spy mission.
I do love the imagery of a bunch of Nazis running one way and then they're running past these like 4 dudes who are just like by hand hauling a rocket, and they're like, what is that? But they're just like, they're just
keep
trying
going,
to like,
keep
they're like,
going.
we can't turn around.
Just the most butchered German. Run!
Yeah.
Save yourselves!
And things actually got even more tense. See, just before the plan was supposed to go into action, one of the organizers, an intelligence officer named Antoni Kotzian, was captured by the Gestapo. And Kotzian wasn't just a spy. He was an aerospace engineer who'd spent years studying the V2s and relaying his findings to the Allies. He was the guy who led the team of engineers that disassembled the V2 in the river. He knew everything about Operation Third Bridge because he planned most of it himself and was considered valuable enough that the Allies wanted him on the plane and out of Poland.
And he got captured, you said?
He got captured by the Gestapo.
Ugh.
So when he got captured and tortured, everyone expected him to crack and for the plan to be like a complete bust. He didn't. Despite relentless torture and being sent to the infamous Paviak prison run by the SS, Kotzian didn't give up any secrets on the mission at all. And we'll talk a little bit more about him later. It doesn't end great, as you can probably imagine, but still, like, this dude fully does not give up a single thing.
Wow.
Yeah. So on the night of the operation, a large group of partisans was waiting by a makeshift airfield, basically just an empty field. They had with them 20 briefcases carrying over 900 pounds of V2 rocket parts, as well as technical drawings and blueprints. All they had to do was wait for the Dakota, load it up, and watch it fly home.
Oh, no.
As the Poles waited, a pair of German fighters swooped in, and like they thought they were going to get strafed. The German fighters just landed in the field, parked for a few minutes, and then took off and left.
What?
Yeah, they just landed in the field.
Cop pulling up behind you, checking your plates,
Just
saying,
flashing his lights at you.
Yeah, you're good, and then just dipping.
Yeah,
Wow.
except that cop, he just like that cop car has just like a huge swastika across the front of it, and they're just like, "All right, thank you, have a good evening."
They like flew away. They're like, "Did you see everyone staring at us? Wow, we're so cool, yeah."
A quick-thinking Polish partisan runs up and asks for their autograph.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, you guys German? I love Germans. You
Yeah,
guys are great.
we're at the front line to watch you guys win.
Oh, this is great. What's over there? Nothing, man. It's like we're having a lunch.
We're
all
a
very
Celebration of our victory.
We're
Yeah.
saving the national secrets.
hungry. Yeah.
And like for the partisans, this is incredibly like tense because first off, they were wondering like, are we about to get strafed? Why are these planes landing here? Like, should
Right.
we kill these guys? Like they could only watch, like they thought that they might have, like the fighters might have called in support.
Okay, I gotta
God, that's
break
sketchy.
this up for a hot second. I can just only imagine the stupidity of being a fighter pilot, landing, having your cockpit ripped open, and just getting stabbed. You want to talk about the disrespect of that right there?
Nazis.
Well, and you have no
Well,
cows to hide behind. There's
Oh,
like
yeah.
they're like, "Oh, get a farmer. Like, we need cows."
Pilots land, they look around. The field that was like empty a few minutes ago is suddenly
Cows.
full to the brim
Filled
with
with
cows.
cows.
What a cows.
Wait, those aren't pens, those are knives.
Yeah, so the fighters left, and after like a couple of hours of tensely waiting for the Germans to show up, they never did. So the operation was still on, and just before midnight, resistance lookouts heard the approaching Dakota, and they lit torches all along the runway to like guide it in. And this is another
Wow.
thing. This plane makes a lot of noise, and like they are able to hear it a ways out. The Germans can probably hear it a ways out, but you know, they might not care because
Slightly more preoccupied.
they're occupied with something. They're occupied with a lot of
reinforcements.
somethings named Ivan.
The reinforcements they actually called in are just 3 fields over. Like, where the fuck are these guys? I thought they said they were right here.
Yeah, taking the wrong turn and just driving straight into like a Soviet tank.
Yeah. Like, what's that sound? It sounds like a plane taking off. Oh, no.
Hold that thought. We'll get there.
God.
Yeah. So as soon as it landed, the parts were loaded along with 5 Polish engineers, and the pilots spun up the engines to take off. And it is at this point that the plan fell apart for a second time. When the Dakota stopped, its tires became like it sunk into the mud. This was a muddy field.
Ugh.
And to try and get the aircraft free, the pilot revved the engines to full throttle, which alerted a German unit less than a mile away.
The reinforcements that are lost.
Yeah.
They're right there. We need to
They
go get
did
them.
call.
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a load of torches that have been lit, and the plane is like, the engines are screaming.
Wow.
So with their transport hopelessly stuck and German forces closing in, the resistance fighters started digging in to protect the airfield. There was even talk of burning the Dakota and the parts to prevent the Germans from recovering them. And thankfully, they did not have to do that. The first people to investigate the noise weren't the Germans. It was a group of local farmers who wanted to help.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
The
the
farmers
reinforcements,
won this-
the cows.
My boys!
If I know anything.
And they showed up like as soon as they heard what the problem was. They ran back to their farms, ripped up all of the fences, and showed up with a bunch of 2x4s that
God,
they used to
they're
like
epic.
lever the plane out of the mud.
They saw the problem. They understood the mission statement.
Yeah, just like
from the go.
instantly
Oh.
grabs the John Deere tool that is perfectly built for this.
Amazing. Did it get towed by like 50 cows they strapped to the front of the plane? They're like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, my first thought was that the farmers were going to go back to like get their tractors so that they could pull it out of the mud. But
The farmers at least have some tools and like the planks to help. The resistance fighters, whenever the farmers show up, are fully just digging with their hands to try and get this thing out of the mud.
Wow.
And as much as I want this to sound like some like swoop in and save the day kind of stuff, even with the farmers' help, it took an hour of like tense trying to get this thing out, at which like they were all worried the Germans could show up any second.
Hey, planes are not light, buddy.
Especially after they loaded with 5 extra passengers and about a ton of V2.
Not to mention all the cows.
Dang, how fat are those passengers?
5 of them, probably like half a ton.
Also, no. Our guest is a great question. What about the cows?
Yeah, they probably put cows in that plane. They're
What if they
as
have
far
to
as-
take off again and they don't have cows?
Yeah, what are you gonna hide behind?
Since they didn't really know what a V2 was like, I wonder if it had hit a cow, if they would have had to assume, like, I don't know, maybe the cow's part of the design. Let's send it along.
I mean, I wouldn't risk it.
What, the jaw of a cow around the front landing wheel?
From what I've gathered from this story is that the cows won the war. That's
Hey,
I think I
legit-
could take it from me. I could boil World War II down. I'm pretty confident that the cows won.
Oh, this is...
Is it time to tap the logistics sign again?
I desperately want to get a thing done now because this is going to be like a real deep cut. So I'm Canadian. I'm the one Canadian on the show. And
Love it.
there's this local, I get not local, but like they're in Prince Edward Island. There's this ice cream maker, this creamery called Cows. And whenever I was a kid, they like their main thing wasn't making ice cream. It was making parody t-shirts of just like anything. So like Star Wars, Cows t-shirt. I'll send a link just to like give you an idea.
Yes.
Or if you
They
just look
replace the people
it
with
up like
cows.
Cows t-shirt, and it's just loads and loads and loads of parodies of every single movie. I want to see like Polish resistance fighters like you can see in slide 21, except it's just all in the Cows style.
Oh, literally cows.ca.
Yeah.
Cowscreamery.ca.
No, just cows. They
Oh.
got cows.
They managed to get it.
Oh, that's epic. Connor Moo David. Oh my god. I'm a big hockey dude. That's a great one.
Yeah, I think they've kind of had to like scrape the barrel recently because all of the pop culture references were done like 20 years ago.
Moochie?
Moonions.
Hey.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift. Oh, okay. I'm buying a shirt. This is too good. Movie-Wan Cano. Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, this is gonna derail me way too hard. I gotta close that.
Oh, social distancing, keep one cow apart 6 feet.
Yes.
I like that one. Yeah, and whenever I was a kid, this was like everybody had to have one of these like parody t-shirts.
I gotta ask my wife because she's from Toronto, which I know is like slightly different, but
I mean,
Canadian,
they definitely would have had it. There, I think.
I'm wearing Roots sweatpants right now. I'm very, the lower half of me is very Canadian right now.
Ooh.
Yeah, so like after a full hour of these guys like shoveling, trying to get this plane in the air, the pilot gunned the engines and the Dakota finally took off for Italy with a ton of V2 rocket equipment and a bunch of engineers. So mission accomplished.
Hell yeah.
Here's the cherry on top. The SS troops arrived just too late to stop the plane and just in time to walk into a Polish ambush.
Hell yeah.
Resistance
Wow.
fighters hidden around the edge of the clearing, like fully just the entire thing was lined with machine guns pointed in. And the Germans like drove right up into that. So they got fully gunned down, wiped out, and then the Polish resistance fighters disappeared and snuck back off.
Dude, this is a movie. I know you said you weren't trying to phrase it like you're trying to find the movie. Like, I'd watch this movie. This is epic.
This is the end of Fury. This is literally like a big column of SS dudes show up and then run at machine guns and just get killed.
Yeah, this is epic.
This is a action comedy to its core.
Yeah.
God, I love it.
Oh yeah, you love to see
They
it.
like the Nazis like sneak up and they see these two dudes who they think are like eating unawares, and then they grab them on the shoulder and spin them around, and they're both cows, and they're like, "What's the?" And then they get like ambushed.
What is das? And then suddenly everything becomes very loud.
God, they're all cows.
You could have saved the cows website for the end of this bit. I hate you just a little bit.
I am fully going to pay one of our artist friends to do Polish resistance fighters in the style of the cow's ice cream. And no, it can't
God,
be merch.
so
No
good.
one would buy that. No one would be
do
incredible.
it in black and white too.
Exactly.
I mean, cows are already black and white. They're perfect for World War II.
Man, spitting nothing but facts. Dairy Potter. Okay, I'm done with that one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
No, we're done. We're out. Peace.
So that is effectively the end of Operation Third Bridge. The plane makes it all the way back to Italy, and then from there makes a couple of hops back to London.
This is beautiful. It is operational art in the most spastic way you can imagine.
Are you still talking about the t-shirts or?
No.
Okay,
I'm-
all right, sweet, awesome.
No,
he's just fully in awe of like the cow t-shirt.
No, operational art, as in just you managed to just slither a plane all the way up through continental Europe, dab into Poland. Hey, get a rocket inside of this twin engine boy, and orchestrate an ambush at the end. Chef's kiss.
In fairness, all of the cool parts of this plan are where it went completely wrong. Like
Like a movie.
the fact they had to utilize cows to hide this rocket. The fact that like random farmers showed up at exactly the right time. You know, our podcast, we mostly focus on bad space history or failures. This is probably our first non-failure because this mission works. You know, it works great. They get the rocket parts.
I mean, it's a failure for one. It's an immaculate success for the other.
But at
Yeah.
the same time, like we said, if one thing went wrong, we would be talking about this as a failure and we would be rightly calling it a dumb, stupid plan. I don't know how they could have done it better at the end of the day.
Every single plan is a dumb, stupid plan until it's not.
If it works, it's not dumb. If it fails, it's dumb, is kind of the level we're operating on.
This was a D&D campaign that the GM
Absolutely.
decided was just going to succeed. Just, I'll fudge it a
Yeah,
little
like
bit.
you
Here
offer
go.
them a problem that's just like, oh yeah, they'll probably like charter a boat and send it straight to Britain. And they respond like, no, I have a better plan.
You even start the players at an airfield with an empty thing, and they're like, "Okay, so we're going to take it apart and drag it across the field, right?" And the GM's like, "Yeah, okay, not exactly what I was having in mind." He's like, "Well, improv, it's fine. We'll figure it
I
out.
roll animal handling. Let's get some cows.
Let's get some cows involved."
The druid just sitting there
Yeah.
rolling aces across the board.
Yes.
Just rolling 20s to the core.
The cows know martial art.
Kung fu.
Yeah, that was great.
Legacy.
Now, I wish I could say that the success of Operation Third Bridge put a stop to the V2 program or helped the Allies build some kind of countermeasures. And unfortunately, it didn't. This whole story happened almost a year before the first operational V2 slammed into London. What Operation Third Bridge did was give the Allies a much greater idea of the V2's capabilities, its range, its accuracy, how big of a payload it could carry.
Things they all should have used.
Yeah, and as much as we can look at the V2 with hindsight and see it for the dumb kind of weapon that it is, back then, and this is something we talk about constantly with our space stuff, is they did not know. They knew that the Germans were making the super weapon, but they didn't know what for. They didn't know what it could do. They were legitimately worried at the time that this weapon could be used to, like, wipe out Allied armies. In the end, the parts and drawings and the engineers who carried them all the way out of Poland showed the Allies what the V2 really was. Not a high-precision weapon of war, but a terror weapon so inaccurate it could only ever be fired at cities and civilians, which is bad, is awful. It wasn't going to ever have any, like, the Allies, once they realized this, they were just like, they can kind of ignore it, if that makes sense.
Right.
They don't need to draw up any huge new plans. They're just like, all right, this is going to suck. They're going to shoot it at us, and then we're going to go kill them.
It's the thing that galvanizes a population, not fracture it.
So while it didn't stop the V2s, the intelligence work of the Home Army and other resistance movements definitely made things a lot harder for the Germans. They stole parts, they blew up rocket shipments, and they even managed to assassinate some V2 scientists and engineers. And I do sound happy about that because that is a good thing.
It's a bad thing happening to the worst people. So ultimately,
over in Western Europe, French and Dutch resistance groups kept careful tabs on mobile V2 launchers. So the way that the V2 worked whenever they actually launched it was completely mobile. There would be like a concrete pad, but the actual rocket would be driven out on a trailer. All of the support gear would be fully mobile to try and keep them kind of stealthy and hard to hit. And all of that was for naught because anytime one of these launch groups left their base, they would have like a bunch of French resistance dudes in cars just kind of tailing them, actively telling the Allied air forces like, yeah, bomb this thing. Again, it didn't stop the V2s, but by the end of the war, there were hundreds or even thousands of completed V2 rockets that the Germans had not been able to launch because of the efforts in large part of these resistance groups, as well as the Polish Home Army, who had, given all of this information on how the V2 worked to the Allies.
The intelligence powerhouse that is Poland.
And I don't want to really end us on a sour note. However, I do feel that it does need to be said because we talked about him before. So for Antoni Kocjan, the Home Army leader and intelligence officer who was captured by the Nazis, he endured months of torture without giving up any secrets, either on Operation Third Bridge or just on any of the Home Army operations, which, again, he was a high-up leader in that group. Because they couldn't get anything out of him during the Warsaw Uprising in August of 1944, he was executed along with the rest of the prisoners by Nazi guards. So, everybody, that is the story of Operation Third Bridge, the time that the Polish resistance stole an entire Nazi V2. How's everybody feel? With the help of some cows.
I feel pretty good for once.
Like, let's take a look at this from the top down. We have some D&D level shenanigans, the archetypal bad guys, and real assholes really getting it stuck to just through sheer shenanigans and guile.
Yep.
It's beautiful. And that the chef's kiss really is that ambush.
Amazing. That was epic.
It really is. Just guile, badassery, and shenanigans.
Yep. Otherwise, I completely lost my train of thought on the one sentence I have left to say. I literally just have to say, Red Eye, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, man, it's been fun.
Is there anything you want to plug to our listeners?
Oh gosh, if there's the only space thing I've done recently was a movie called The Meteor Man, which is it's not a space movie. Don't even watch the video.
After you came on for this joint Fast and Furious, Steven Seagal,
I gotta do Fast
Polish
and Furious
resistant rocket stream.
No, I had a great time. I mean, if you guys want to check out my channel, Red Eye Reviews, I'm about this intelligent the whole time. So if this didn't bother you, then hopefully that doesn't bother you.
It would never bother me.
And yeah, listeners, there'll be a link below. Go check out his channel.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for being here. Thank you for listening to Failure to Launch. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a review or tell a friend. Everything helps. If you want to follow us, contact us, or suggest a topic, you can email us at launchfailurepodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter at launch_failure. Failure to Launch is hosted on Anchor, and we post on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. We also post our episodes with visual aids on YouTube at Failure to Launch. All music was provided by DJ Danarchy.